Folks, I've been missing in action for quite a while, and the reasons are actually unimportant, but back in the game now, and I think I've arrived just in time. We have approximately 6 days before the election in November, and now more so than ever, it is absolutely a matter, in my opinion, of life or death that we vote. Now, in the past, it appears that people have not voted in their own self-interests. But more so now than ever before, we need to vote in our own self-interest. Now, there are things that cut across all racial lines and most economic lines that should be important to us. When I say that, I'm talking about health care. Health care is one of the top reasons that people file bankruptcy, lose their homes. Once they lose their homes, lose their jobs, or whatever financial support that they have. The Republicans over 50 times in Congress voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And if the Affordable Care Act did one thing, it basically helped every man, woman, and child in this country when it came to the one major thing that insurance companies love to use in order not to honor a claim. And that is denial because of pre-existing conditions. Now, approximately 70% of the American people, possibly more, love the feature in the Affordable Care Act that stops insurance companies from denying claims and coverage because of pre-existing conditions. The Republicans realized late in the game, I guess, that fighting against coverage on pre-existing conditions is a loser. So now, all of a sudden, you have commercials all over the place about how the Republicans will protect your right to have insurance coverage, and that the pre-existing condition of feature is something that they want to protect. But folks, I'm here to tell you that that's a bunch of crap. You have approximately 17 states that are currently suing the federal government over the pre-existing clause in the Affordable Care Act. They want to get rid of it. The governor of Wisconsin specifically has put out commercials where he will protect your right to have coverage over pre-existing conditions. And he specifically and his state are one of the leaders, along with Texas. They are leading the fight to get rid of pre-existing conditions. So if for nothing else, to keep money in your pocket, you need to vote against these people in the House and in the Senate that have voted to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, because if they win, and I don't think that they are going to win in the House, but the Senate may be a different story. If they win, excuse me, and get their way, pre-existing conditions will again be a factor in the game. Some states have come out with their own laws where insurance companies, although not prohibited from providing insurance covering pre-existing conditions, are allowed to jack up the premiums for people in order to cover pre-existing conditions. Well, folks, that's basically the same thing as telling you that they're not going to cover you, because if the cost of the premium is so prohibitively high that you can't afford it, well, you know, you're SOL, as far as insurance coverage because of pre-existing conditions. Folks, that bullshit tax cut that they put through that loaded $1.5 trillion of debt onto the country, onto you and me and everybody that we know, that went to the top 1%, and basically it went to corporations more so than anything else. That extra $20 a week that you have in your paycheck, and that's an average, folks, that's an average. There were some people who didn't see a dime from that tax cut. That is money, quote unquote, that they supposedly put into your pocket. But it's time for us to look at the big picture. How much money have they taken out of your pocket? I say that because they got rid of the mandate for health insurance, which once that went into effect, it caused premiums to rise like crazy. So that $20 that went into your pocket went out along with a lot of its brothers and sisters in order to cover the cost of the increase in the premiums that you have to pay for health care. They also went after a lot of the subsidies that the Affordable Care Act had put into place. But the number one thing, actually the number two thing, because the pre-existing conditions, in my opinion, is number one. But the number two thing that a lot of these states did was they didn't opt in for the Medicaid expansion, which again would have helped everybody, because that would have caused insurance premiums to go down because more people would have been covered. The government would have stepped in and helped out as far as covering people for medical conditions. So that would have been more money that was not taken out of your pocket if you did not have insurance coverage. So that alone should be enough for us to realize that we needed to vote a Democrat versus Republican. But let's look at the tax cut. That tax cut did not help black people. It did not help Hispanics. And it really didn't help any middle class on down white people. That tax cut went to the upper echelon of our society. So, you know, if you're a black and rich, yeah, it could have helped you. If you're Hispanic and rich, and I mean rich, it could have helped you. And obviously, if you were white and rich, it, you know, definitely helped you. But if you were a Walmart or a major corporation of that ilk, you raked in the dough. You raked it in. And you raked it in on the backs of the American people. That tax cut should be reversed. Donald Trump stated last week that they were going to have a major tax cut, a 10% tax cut done this week. Well, folks, that was a goddamn lie. There was no way that Donald Trump could have gotten a tax cut for the quote-unquote middle class, which is what he was trumpeting, because Congress was not in session. And everybody knew what he was saying was a lie. But very few people, especially the Republicans, stepped out and told the truth. Now, a bunch of Democrats did, and mainstream media stepped out and pointed it out, but the Republicans did not rein this guy in, and it was specifically a lie. So Donald Trump, all he's doing is he's running scared that the Republicans are going to get shellacked, and in the House of Representatives they definitely are. Now the Senate, again, is a different story. Races are very, very tight, and it looks, in my opinion, like the Republicans are going to be able to hold the Senate. And if they do, you can look at the Supreme Court justice process to go the way that the Kavanaugh situation went, if not better, for the Republicans. But the House of Representatives holds the purse strings. So we absolutely need to take over the House of Representatives and have them fight for the American people. Now, number 3, and this is the one that both blacks and Hispanics should jump all over. Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump is a white supremacist. We had that situation with that Trump supporter who was mailing letter bombs out to various Democratic operatives, Obama, the Clintons, Holder, George Soros, various people who all had voiced their opposition to Donald Trump. Thank God none of the bombs went off, nobody was hurt. But that was all because of Trump. But the next 2 items that I want to address, one you may or may not have heard of, and the other one you definitely heard of, are all because of the rhetoric and the atmosphere created by Donald Trump. You may not have heard about the 2 black people that were killed in Kentucky. I know that my wife hadn't really heard a lot about it, and I explained to her why. It was because the 11 Jewish people that were killed in that synagogue, that occurred immediately after the killing of the 2 black people, and it completely overshadowed that event. So let me give you some information on that one. I'm not sure of the city, but in Kentucky, a white man, and most of these murders and bombings and killings are not done by black people. They're not done by Hispanic people. They're not done by Muslims. The majority of the killings, as far as for political reasons, are done by white men. Let me repeat that. The majority of the terrorist acts, as far as bombings and killings and attacks are concerned, are done by white men, followed up by white women. In the state of Kentucky, a white man with a gun attempted to enter a black church. Now, thank God he was not able to get in because the majority of the doors were locked. So because he couldn't get in and kill a bunch of black people inside of a black church, predominantly black church, he went next door to a supermarket, and being the coward that he is, walked up behind a black man and shot him in the back of the head. He then walked out of the supermarket and into the parking lot and shot a black woman from behind, killing both. A white man saw what went down in the parking lot, saw this person with the gun, and obviously was in fear for his life. The perpetrator of this crime, seeing the fear on his fellow white citizen's face, told the white man that, quote, whites don't kill whites. Now, he was arrested without incident. Initially, they didn't know if they were going to charge him with a hate crime. Really. They subsequently saw the handwriting on the wall between the previous act and the assassination murder of the 11 Jewish people in the synagogue and decided to charge him. But you need to do a little research. There are multiple items online where you can go into and get all the details of the murder of the 2 black people in Kentucky. But the third event, the killing of the 11 Jews in the synagogue, that one struck home for a lot of people. As you should be aware, that murder, those murders, those assassinations took place in the city of Pittsburgh, in a well-to-do area called Squirrel something or other. Squirrelville, I guess. I'm not sure. But this guy, who was radicalized by the rhetoric of Donald Trump, who stated that the quote-unquote group that they were somewhat affiliated with, a group that helps people come to the United States that are refugees. It originally was founded to help Jewish refugees come to America, but it subsequently expanded its role and helps all people with valid claims to come into the United States, which includes obviously Jewish people, but it also includes Muslims, Christians, etc. Well, because Donald Trump has stated that this particular group was somehow helping the people coming in from Central America towards the United States, and that it was some kind of horde that was invading our country, this guy decided to take it upon himself to take action. Now, how him murdering a bunch of people in a synagogue was going to stop this organization from helping people is beyond me. But nevertheless, that was his thought process, and he took action. Now, he immediately is up for the death penalty, as should that person in Kentucky be similarly charged and convicted. But Donald Trump is doing everything he can to appeal to the white supremacists in this country. And that bullshit that he's come up with regarding the 14th Amendment and getting rid of birthright citizenship is just another example of his appeal to white supremacists everywhere, that they need to come out and support him and any candidate that is in support of him. To black people, if you think that getting rid of the 14th Amendment, which by the way can't be done unless there's a constitutional amendment that would supersede it, but this is their thought process. But if you think that if they were able to do this, that they would stop with the refugees coming up from Central America, you got another thing coming. Because if they can strip the citizenship from Hispanics, and that's primarily their target, if they can strip citizenship from them, who the hell do you think is next? Us. And they would do and use any excuse in their power to strip up us of our citizenship. And then the Jews, they know, they see the handwriting on the wall. They know which way the wind is blowing and what time it is. They know it would just be a matter of time before they were attacked and their citizenship was stripped. So folks, vote like your life depends on it. because it actually does.